Hello, everyone. As you probably already know, we're gearing up for one of the most exciting times of the year with March Madness, and that means it's time for the annual ACDI Bracket Challenge. So, to break things down a little bit, I'm excited to be joined today by Chilton and Doggett from our team, and we're going to take you through just a little bit of what we're expecting to come here in these first two rounds later this week. So, guys, we're going to talk through a couple of things. We're going to reveal our predicted champions, our expectations for the Final Four. We're going to reveal one early upset that each of us is predicting. And obviously, being right here in Benton, we got to talk about the Razorbacks a little bit. So, to kick things off, put yourself on the spot a little bit and announce to everyone who you are predicting to win this year's NCAA tournament.
Florida Gators.
Florida as well.
That's a clean sweep, folks, because I also am picking Florida. I don't know what the reasoning is for you guys, but for me, they just went through a gauntlet to win the SEC tournament. I think we all agree that the SEC was probably the strongest basketball conference this year. And I think that resume speaks for itself.
Yes, they are on absolute fire. So
Yeah.
Florida all the way.
They demolished Alabama.
They did. They're playing really well right now. They're 30-4 on the season. They're third in the country in points per game, so I think they can score with anyone. They've won big games all season. They beat Auburn. They beat Tennessee. They beat Alabama, and obviously won the SEC tournament. So looks like we're all in agreement on the Gators cutting down the nets. But let's round out the rest of the Final Four. Drew, who do you have joining Florida in your Final Four?
Michigan State playing them in the semis, and then Gonzaga and Alabama.
Gonzaga?
Yeah.
All right, tell me a little bit about that. That's
Gonzaga.
Okay.
They're always good.
Sure.
They're always
The
good.
history's there.
They're going to be the team that upsets and breaks all the brackets.
I like it.
Nobody likes them. They're not, but they have the number one offense in the nation.
There you go.
Nobody scores points in March Madness.
Hey, look, and there's no right or wrong answer, obviously. Many of us have spent hours painstakingly going through this thing. Look, it's called March Madness for a reason. There's going to be upsets. There's going to be things that we didn't expect. So I like that. I like the bold choice of throwing Gonzaga in there. Bailey, what about you? Who rounds out your Final Four with Florida?
I'm going SEC heavy.
Okay.
Since they're just dominating.
Sure.
I've got Auburn and Florida, and Duke and Tennessee.
Okay.
Duke and Florida in the championship.
I also have Florida over Duke in my championship. I like the Tennessee pick. They've been great all year. Obviously we're Razorback fans here, but it would be nice to see Rick Barnes get over the hump and finally make a Final Four. This would be Tennessee's first time to make a Final Four as a program if they were able to complete that. So I like the picks. Much like Drew, I went a little off the board on a couple of mine. So I have Florida playing Duke in the national championship, but rounding out my Final Four, I actually have 2 6 seeds. I have Ole Miss and I have Illinois. So I'm predicting a little bit of chaos in the South region. I actually have Auburn going down pretty early. I know they came in as the number 1 team in the country, but believe they've lost 3 of their last 4 coming into the tournament, so not exactly peaking at the right time. So in the midst of that chaos in the South region, I like Chris Beard. This is a guy that has, coached Texas Tech to a national championship appearance in the past. He knows how to win in March. So, and then kind of same thing in the Midwest region where I have Illinois coming out. That's really more just doubts for other teams in that region. I've been, and this is using my personal bias in past brackets that have been busted for me. Houston has busted my bracket many times. Tennessee and Rick Barnes have busted my bracket many times. So, I know anything can happen, and so I'm predicting a little chaos, and I got 2 6 seeds in there.
So you mentioned Auburn going out early.
Yeah.
Who do you have winning Louisville or Creighton?
I have Louisville. Yeah.
So
and then
Louisville's going to upset Auburn?
I am predicting Louisville to knock out Auburn in the round of 32. Yes.
Okay.
But that's what this is all about. It's about making your picks and then seeing how it shakes out. I don't ever want to get too chalky with my picks. Like the March is filled with upsets, so gotta stake my claim there somewhere and throw out some upsets. And speaking of upsets, I would love to know, again, this is especially in the first 2 rounds, there's always going to be upsets. There's going to be a Cinderella story. There's going to be a double digit that goes on a run. So tell me one of your early upset picks, a double digit seed that you have winning in the first round.
Utah State. And I haven't beaten Tennessee.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was your reasoning there?
They're hot.
Just hot at the right time.
Yeah, I heard somebody say Utah State's going deep into it, so I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I knew Tennessee based off previous. They
Sure.
usually choke it, so why
Sure.
not against Utah State?
Bailey?
I'm going UC San Diego over Michigan.
I like it. I think that seems to be a popular one. There's a lot of, and me personally, I love a 12 over a 5. It seems that at least one 12 seed makes the second round every single year. So I feel like as you're filling out your brackets out there, you almost have to pick at least one 12 seed to win in the first round. So I like that. I went with 13 seed Grand Canyon over 4 seed Maryland. This is a team that is tournament tested. They've made the tournament for the last 5 years now. They actually won a first round game last year as a 12 seed over 5 seed St. Mary's. So despite coming from a smaller conference, this is not a team that's going to be afraid to play in the big stage. And, that's my upset pick. Go Grand Canyon. Shout out Bryce Drew. And before we close things out, while we can, because we don't know how it's going to go for our 10th seeded Razorbacks, but we do know they're at least in the dance. They're guaranteed at least one game in the first round against 7 seed Kansas. Let's talk Razorbacks a little bit. How are you guys feeling as Razorback fans going into the tournament?
I'm feeling pretty good. We've been good for the past. We got a good late season streak going.
Yeah,
Coach Cal's first tournament with us, so that's exciting.
it is.
I have got us beating Kansas, but losing to Rick Pitino and St. John's.
Yeah.
In the second round.
Yeah. Drew?
Boogie's going to be back, right?
He is. I was going to ask about that. How do we
Yes.
feel? I mean, he hasn't played since January.
Is he going to pull a Devo miracle against St. John's?
You tell me. What do you think?
I'm going to go with that.
Razorbacks into the
anxious to see-
Razorbacks.
I'm anxious to see that chemistry.
Yeah.
I think when Boogie got hurt, we were still kind of figuring everything out.
Sure.
So, coincidentally, after he got hurt is when we started up in the game. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to see. But I'm excited to have him back.
Definitely, and they've got some history against Kansas in previous NCAA tournaments. So, despite the
Yes.
prestige of going against the Blue Blood program, Arkansas is not going to be afraid at the moment. They've got a lot of big-time recruits on that roster. So, regardless of what the record has been this year, the talent is still there. I know all of our friends in Kentucky would probably love to see a second-round matchup between former Kentucky coaches John Calipari and Rick Pitino in the St. John's, Arkansas potential matchup. Regardless of how it shakes out, we're going to be calling the Hogs. We're going to be supporting our local team and
Always.
hopefully be back to chat more about Razorbacks going into the Sweet 16. Thank you both for joining me. Thanks for breaking down your brackets a little bit, putting yourself on the spot, because now everybody knows, if one of our picks gets busted early on, we might be getting some mentions, we might be getting some comments, some emails from people poking fun at us, but that's what March is all about. So anybody else out there, make sure that you sign up and join ACDI's March Madness Bracket Challenge. You have until the first game tips off midday Thursday. And, not only bragging rights up for grabs, but $250 for you and $250 to the charity of your choice for for our winner at the end of the tournament. So make sure you get in and enjoy all the action and stay tuned for more videos to come.